Morning, everybody. Sunday, the 8th of May. What time is it? Up to 9. We're back on my Learn React Scrimba course, my video journal of the journey. Today we're going to be looking at parent-child components lesson. Now, so I want to share something quickly with you, to all my millions of viewers, which is this. Let's get me out of the way. Don't need me. All that. So this is a learning curriculum Google Sheet that I've set up to kind of keep me on track with the lessons and kind of keep me accountable. So I really plan to do one every day, and I didn't do one yesterday. It kind of bugged me a bit. So I just thought I'd show you this. A, to keep me accountable, and B, to show you my process. So what I've done, these are the first sections. So they're the kind of introduction sections of the course. So I've logged each one in a spreadsheet row, Google Sheet rather. As you can see down there, whenever I've completed a lesson, I'll log it on the date. So today's the 8th. When I've done it, I've got a conditional formatting in here. Change that to yes and no. In fact, let's lock that there. Missed. It's that one, isn't it? Don't want that big. In fact, don't even need that. There we go. Or that. Delete. Right. Yeah, there you go. It's locked now. It's fixed. So yeah, I've not been doing this either. I'll kind of, if there's any important takeaways from each lesson, I'll write it in my little notes there, which I haven't been doing. Naughty me. It is important to do this actually. So I put a little notes there. So when the CDN's gone in that lesson, these are the little things you have to add. So yeah, that's that. Right, how do I get that off? Let's get back on with today's lesson. Early in the morning, this. Not early. 9:30. 8:30 even. I've not had coffee. So I wanted just to get this done and out of the way. It's something else I might start doing just to refine my process. Learning. Try and get it done. Just try and get one done first thing in the morning. Right, share screen. And it's done then. We're doing that with these 7-minute workouts I've been doing in the morning as well. Just trying to lose a bit of weight. Just do it first thing in the morning, so you don't have to think about it. Right, there it is. It's a bit smaller. Let's get full screen. Let's get me on. There we go. Right. Well, that bollock's done with. Parent-child components. All right, Bob, let's see what you've got.
As we've mentioned, it's not ideal to be taking our entire markup and stuffing it into one component like we're doing here. So let's learn through practice the concept of creating a parent and child component. We're going to start this off by having you do a mini challenge. So let me type out that challenge here. Okay, your little mini challenge is to take the header element from our page and to put it into its own component that's called header. Technically speaking, I'm not necessarily asking you to then render the header inside the page, but if you want a little extra credit challenge, you can render that header component that you just made inside of the page here. Pause now and work on this mini challenge.
Right, move the header element from the page into its own component called header. Right, okay. Remember Pascal. Okay, This will be too hard. It will be when your mouse stops working. Fuck's sake. What are you going to do? Right. So what I'm going to do. Worst product design ever. When you're charging a Apple Magic Mouse, you can't use it. So we're kind of stuffed. However, I do have a backup plan in these circumstances. In the form of this crappy little portable laptop mouse, which I always have plugged in just in case. Right, we're back in business. Right, what we're doing? Move the header from the element to its own page header. Okay. Oof, this mouse is horrible. Why is it not letting me cut? Command X. The whole thing stopped working. What the fuck? Keyboard stopped working now. Is that one out of juice? Surely not. It's lost its Bluetooth connection. It's reconnecting. Right, there we go. No days today, I think. Right. Do I not like that? The OCD in me will not allow that to happen. Have a whole lot. I missed the return statement. This, like Bob says, muscle memory, brain, muscle, turning JSX written. So this will create the object, pass this down to function, to the render. Right, so what did he say? Well, I've done that. He said he wants it rendering as well. So what will happen now? Jack shit. All right, for a bonus point, he said render the header as well. What parameters can this take? I'm guessing it won't work. Yeah. I wonder. Wrap that in a div or something. Interesting. Let's try that. Yes. I guess another way to do this would be computer says no for that. Guess that's just overriding that. So the header's being, yeah. So that would work if that wasn't there. So by having them one after the other, I guess this gets set, but then when you're selecting the root element again, and then you're overriding the content of this, which is that, and you're blitzing what was in there. So that's what's going on. I've done it, haven't I? Let's get this up here. Order. Let's get it working again. So, page. And the header component, the page component, as it was telling me in the error message. Adjacent elements must be wrapped in a closing tag. So that's what I did with this div. So it looks like you can mix with HTML with these component calls in this JSX. Yep, done it. Go me. Let's see the rest.
Okay, just like it says, we are going to create a separate header component here. And we're doing this outside of page because they're different components. And basically, I can just cut out this whole header section and return it from my header component. And that's really all the mini challenge was asking you to do. Now, if you didn't try to do the little extra credit I gave you and render the header inside here, I want you to think for a second, what might that look like? Well, just like we are creating our page component down here, or rather we're creating an instance of our page component down here, I can create an instance of my header component by just typing it out like this, as if it were an HTML element amongst my other code. And here we see the concept of composability in practice. I've set aside some of my UI to be managed by a single header component. And then anytime I want to essentially insert these elements into my page, I can create an instance of my header component just like this. Now, in a web page that's this small, it's really not that necessary to do this, but I'm sure you can imagine if this were a much larger application, especially one that had pieces that had a lot of user interaction and so forth, it becomes really, really beneficial to move these things into their own separate components. Okay, so that leads us to the next part of this challenge, which I will type out now. Essentially,
Let's stop briefly there. So, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. It's interesting. For those web developers out there of a certain vintage, who will remember server-side includes, and it kind of reminds me a bit of that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Right, Bob, away you go.
I want you to do the same thing, but now with the footer as its own component and the rest of the content as its own component. Pause now and work on this challenge.
Right. What did he say then? The footer in the list. I just literally forgot what he said. Move the footer into its own component and render the component into page component. Right, okay. Okay. Let's copy and paste all that. Make it a bit easier. Really optimum place for this thing. Springing up. Work. Can you still hear me? Out of the way. Bit nearer. Bit nearer. Time. goes. Back. Move the H1 and the OL into another component called main component and render inside the page as well. Okay. Let's organize this. Grab me. Content. God, I really don't operate without coffee. Come on, brain. Keep going. That's the lot, yeah. Main content in there. Tab it all back. What have I deleted? What doesn't it like there? Don't you like Mr. Main Content Component? That looks fine to me. What's it bitching about? What? Open, open, close, close, open, close, return. It's not got content in. I don't know. Ah, something to do with this. Ah, of course. You can't have adjacent elements together. They need to be wrapped. On it then. Complete work. No one replied on my Scrimba. Scored post. Shit, these. Oh, whether we can get these things working. All right. That's good now. Header. Main component. Main content rather. Footer. Page. Right. So we've got the header. We now want. I'm just copying all these in for the. Ugh. Ugh. Break. Really not helping it doing that. Yeah, it's better. I'm so fucking down. I do need a decent chair with lumbar support. I've got those crappy gamer chairs. Header. Main content. Footer. So, I guess this is the parent component. These are its kids. Header, main, footer. Bring them up. You know the drill. Yes. I'm now a parent-child component composer. Cool. Finish off your shit, Bob.
Okay, just like before, we'll create a new footer function or component here, and it's going to return the footer content. I'll just cut that out of there, put it right here, and down here in its place, we will render the footer component. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing for the main content component. I'll take everything here, including the H1. And there's a little trick here because if you tried to just paste that in, you'll notice that this is two sibling elements, which again, we can't just render side by side. We need a parent element to surround them. So I will put this div down there, indent there, and we will render an instance of our main content component. Now I should be able to refresh the page and essentially have the exact same thing. Of course, now that I've wrapped this in a div, very technically speaking, these elements are now children of the div, and the div exists right here on this level. For my purposes now, this div is not harming anything. It's not changing my styling or anything, so I'm not terribly worried about it. So hopefully you can understand now the idea or the naming of parent-child components. We have a parent component, which is our page component, and just by virtue of it rendering other components, these other components become, by name, children components. And just like HTML, this can go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. I could have main content rendering another component that we have also made. And then relative to main content, that other component would be a child component and main content would be the parent component. This really is no different than in our HTML, how you can have different levels of parent, child, and even grandchild or whatever you want to call it. Nice work on this challenge. You can see that we are now composing our page together of other components. Now we're pretty overdue in learning the ability to add some styling to our page. So that's what we're going to work on next.
Okay, we've made some decent progress on that one. Parent and child components done and dusted. Let's get this out of the way. Next up, we're doing styling with classes, but I'm going to get some food and I'm going to have a coffee before tackling that. But I've done I've done one per day. It's very important just to do one per day, keep things ticking over. So I'm going to put it here. Done. I'll just bring my, let's kill that one. Do bear in mind, I am operating this awful mouse at the moment. So I'm just looking to bring my learning curriculum thing back up just to show you. There you go. So as you can see, the 8th of the 5th, which is today, complete that to yes. I've videoed it. So I did change that to taught, so I've taught it. Like journaled. Journaled it. Any notes? Yep, I've composed. Post the page. Hey, what a saddo I am. Fucking Scrimba's talking now, isn't it? But they're not answering my question. Shit houses. Right, in a bit.